Hey, everybody. Welcome to At Home with Goldnbronze. We do appreciate your meeting us here again today. Hold on one second. I'd like to introduce to you first my very special guest, Eddie Prattt, who is a subject matter expert on At Home with Goldnbronze. He used to also be my subject matter expert on would go to bronze. I just brought him on over here. Over here, we are just a little more relaxed, and this podcast over here does touch on some of the subjects that I'm interested in on that podcast as well, but we just don't have to be so formal over here. So, today we are going to talk about imposter syndrome and people that are um, special people. Hold on one second, everybody. That's the thing about this podcast is we don't have to be so perfect. So, Mr. Prattt, thank you for joining me today on At Home with Goldnbronze. I do appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate every time we are able to do this together.
Can you hear me, Mr.? Good. So, Mr. Prattt, topic is kind of near and dear to me. It is called imposter syndrome in purpose driven people, actually. That's what it's about. And before I get into that, though, I want to say I feel like a lot of people that are purpose driven suffer from, am I good enough to do this? Or can I really do this? And this one is really personal to me because we're talking about something that doesn't get enough honest conversation, especially among those of us who are called to a purpose, gifted, and purpose driven. And we kind of talk ourselves out of things a lot of times. We're talking about imposter syndrome, that quiet voice that whispers in our brain, who do you think you are? That's too big for you to do. You're really not ready for that. We feel that way, Mr. Prattt, even when God has already said that we're ready. Now, one of the reasons I asked Mr. Prattt to join me on this conversation is he is a minister. He is a minister at Family Life Church in Dallas. He is a relationship strategist and he is a marriage counselor. And because he's all of that, I felt like he was the perfect one to address imposter syndrome in purpose driven people, because oftentimes I look at that as people that are called to some sort of ministry. And today I brought him here to unpack this for us, not to give us a perfect about what it is to have imposter syndrome. So, Mr. Prattt, do you want to say anything before I get started?
Well, no, I want you to dive right in, and I'll come right in right after you go into it.
Okay. So, Mr. Prattt, when you hear the phrase imposter syndrome, what does that really mean to you personally?
Well, what it means is that, and let me start by saying there are a lot of successful people that struggle with this. This is when I hear this, it's self-doubt. Um, it is influence that has caused them to believe that they are incapable of doing or fraudulent in the success that they have. They believe that it's luck that it happened. Let me get to the core of where I believe this, or some of the things where I believe, or some of the places and patterns where I believe it comes from. You may have heard me say this before. There are three voices that usually run around in our heads. The first voice is an optimistic voice. That voice is the voice that is affirming, it's encouraging, it's saying you can do it. It's saying that there's nothing that you can't accomplish if you put your mind to it. But bigger than that, that voice comes from God. It's a voice that says, I will never leave you, I'll never forsake you. And it's a voice that says that even though I called you, I don't call the equipped. I prepare the one that I called. I equip the called. And so many times we doubt walking into what we are called to do, purpose driven, because we're thinking that we have to have all of the I's dotted, all of the T's crossed. We have to have everything in place. Whereas it takes faith to do what we're being called to do anyway. So those, going back to those three voices, the optimistic voice, that's the voice that comes from God. Now, the second voice is the wounded voice. This is a wounded voice that comes from your past, things that may have been done to you. It can be betrayals. It can be all of these different things that are wounds that we have experienced. And so with that, that wounded voice will often rear up when you're trying to do something that is out of your comfort zone. That wounded voice will say, we can't do this. There's no way that you can do this. Remember what happened. It reminds you of wounds that happened in the past. And then what it does, it diminishes your belief system. Now, the third voice is the struggle voice. That struggle voice is often birthed from your wounded voice, or it is birthed from the circle of influence that is around you. It could be family members, it could be friends, it could be a spouse, a partner that you're dating. It could just be people on a job, teachers, guidance counselors. Many people have experienced negative influence from people that should have been encouraging. And where it really, really comes confusing is when the title of the person that should have the character or the expectation of support, when those things are not, they're not matching what the title is. The character and the encouragement and the support is not coming from the title of that person. Then it gets confusing when you hear it from someone that you love, that supposedly is supposed to love you and encourage you. When you don't get positive affirmation from that person or those people, you begin to believe that you can't do things. You doubt yourself. Now, here's the other part of it. When the wounded voice and the struggle voice merge together, they become a sabotage voice. And that sabotage voice is at the core of talking you out of doing what you are actually called and purposed to do and skilled to do. And so you doubt yourself. You may procrastinate. You may put it off. You may just quit at the very thing, or when it becomes difficult, because you'll talk yourself out of whatever it is that you're called to do. And so I believe that when this sabotage voice comes into your head, it begins to silence the optimistic voice. And when that happens, people quit. They don't write their books. They don't go after the things that they have it in their heart to do. But they become their own worst enemy.
So, Mr. Pat, the wounded voice was the second one.
Yes.
Was the sabotage voice the third one?
No. The sabotage.
Okay, what's the
voice,
first one?
The first one is the
I'm getting
optimistic
personal.
voice.
I experienced.
The first voice is the optimistic voice.
Okay.
That's the voice that's encouraging.
I said it was personal to me. Okay, well, I didn't have that one.
Okay. So
Okay. I'm trying to see See, I said I suffered from imposter syndrome, but when I first, go ahead.
So let me go back through the three voices.
Go
The
ahead.
first, the first voice is the optimistic voice. That's the voice
Okay.
that comes from God that says that you can do it. That's where your belief system
Mm-hmm.
in yourself comes from God. It's an encouraging, affirming voice. And it's a voice that says, I will never leave you or forsake you, that I'm here with you. And that's the voice that actually births the dream that you can do whatever it is that you dream about doing. The second voice is the wounded voice, which comes from hurts or betrayals from your past. That's the wounded voice. And that voice often says, remember, we were hurt or we were betrayed. It's the voice that instills fear in you. Then the third voice is the struggle
Yeah.
voice. The struggle voice are the things that you currently struggle with and often are birthed from two places. They can be, well, they can be birthed from more than two places, but they're often birthed from your wounds, which comes from your wounded voice, and then it comes from a negative circle of influence. People that hold the titles of support, but they're not supportive. That can be a family member, it can be a friend, it can be a spouse, it can be a partner, a romantic partner, it could be cousins, families, or it could be teachers, or even sometimes mentors. They don't have the capacity to be encouraging, or they think that for whatever reason that you can't do it. So they don't counsel or support you in the way. And when you don't get support from those people that you expect it from, it becomes very confusing in our minds. Now, the wounded voice, when the wounded voice and the
Yeah.
struggle voice, when they merge, they become a sabotage voice. It takes those two voices that come together and create that sabotage voice. And the purpose of the sabotage voice is to silence the optimistic voice.
Wow. That's good stuff. Mr. Pratt, do you think imposter syndrome shows up differently in people who know that they have a purpose versus those still searching for it?
Um, yes, it can. It's so many variations in the way it shows up. For instance, um, I remember just from a personal experience when I owned an auto detailing business in Maryland at one time, and I had quit my job because I believed that I could be successful,
Mm-hmm.
and I was successful in the business. But then what I wanted to do is expand from it and do something totally different. I began studying where that I started looking
Mm-hmm.
at a different type of business to go into from my detailing business. I was going to open up a 24-hour daycare business. And I had studied in Baltimore that Baltimore at the time had the highest rate of single mothers. I discovered that many single mothers worked at Johns Hopkins Hospital. So I figured I would get a duplex where the daycare center could be on one side and the director of it could live on the other side. So it would be close to where a lot of the single mothers were working. I was going to put another one that was close to the entertainment area
Mm-hmm.
in Baltimore, the Inner Harbor, and some of the nightclubs and restaurants and things of that nature, so that people that wanted to go out, if single moms wanted to go out and have a good time, that their kids would be in a safe place. I had the money, I had the credit, and it was a great idea. And I talked myself out of it because of the imposter syndrome. So instead of going into that, I
Wow.
bought another sports car.
What? Oh, you bought a sports car?
I
Car,
bought
instead of doing that,
I
I'm laughing
I
because
already
you
had 2 sports cars. I bought
look,
another one. And I'm telling you, it was just birthed from fear. I talked myself out of it because I was afraid to do it. I was afraid to do it. I didn't have
Mr. Pratt,
anyone that
I
could go
never would
into
have
it. So
thought
yeah.
you,
Huh?
not you, imposter syndrome.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I never would have thought that you suffered.
Absolutely. I think that
WhatsApp audio. Aaron, I have to call you back. I'm in the middle of a podcast. I'm sorry. Oh man, I'm sorry about that, everybody. Let me turn off my phone. Go ahead, Mr. Pratt. Tell us about you suffering from imposter syndrome. Never.
absolutely. See, I think that that's why I'm transparent about things that I have struggled with, because I think that that engagement and it has helped me counsel people effectively because I can relate to the struggle of it. So, uh, and actually, there's a scripture in the Bible, Psalm 119:71. It says that uh, it was good that I was afflicted so that I might learn your decrees. So the affliction of the imposter syndrome made me lean on God more and create uh, a level of faith where I stopped believing in myself and I believe more in God than I believed in myself. And so I believe that God planted a dependency
Well,
in each one of us. And so that dependency on God led me to stop listening to those wounded voices and those struggle voices and listening to the optimistic voice. Because it took a lot of courage to leave that comfortable job and go into business. But the detailing business was something that I was really comfortable about. I knew it. I understood it. Um, it was something that I was very comfortable in. But the fear of starting something very different from that, I knew it was a good idea. There was no way in the world you could talk me out of it not being a good idea, but I was my worst enemy. I was my worst influence. And I talked myself right out of it and went and bought a sports car.
so now this has nothing to do with the podcast, but we need to just have fun with this. Tell me, what kind of sports car did you go buy?
Oh, it was a Corvette. The best. It was a Corvette.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, and you
And
said you already had one,
I
right?
already had two.
You already had
I had two other sports cars. Here's the outcome.
two cars.
Now, I didn't have two Corvettes. I had when I bought that car, I already had 6 cars. So I didn't need another car.
Wow.
Here's what I'm saying, what the imposter syndrome can do to a person. Because right now, I don't have the 24-hour daycare business and I don't have the sports cars either.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
and
So
and
let me ask,
let me add one
go
more
ahead.
thing. Here's what it leads to, what I think is one of the most damaging things. If you don't go through with your purpose or your dream, then it becomes a regret. And it's very difficult to get
Mhm.
over a regret, something that you brought on to yourself, which is why I said, going to that Psalm 119:71, it was good that I was afflicted. It was good that I went through that because it led me to seek God at a deeper level.
Yeah. So, Mr. Pratt, why do you think so many purpose-driven people struggle with feeling like they're not enough, or even when they're clearly walking in their gifts like you, and you talked yourself out of it?
Well, I think that it really goes back to what I was saying about those voices. I think that the circle of influence has a lot to do with it. It has a lot to do with it. Um, if you're surrounded by people that don't encourage you, that don't hold you accountable, that was something that I did not have. Uh, because even when I started my business, the people that were around me, they were like, "I can't believe you're getting ready to quit this good job. You know, you're making good money and you're doing good. You got benefits and all like this. What do you mean you're gonna quit your job to go clean cars?" But I had this stubborn belief in myself, but it was not attached to Christ, if that makes sense. I just believed I got tired of working for corporate
Uh-huh, it
America. And
does.
so when I left, it was probably more so from a place of anger and that I can't take this anymore. So I'm going to go do what I believe I can do. But when it came to doing something outside of my comfort zone, that's when I began to doubt myself. Now, here's the interesting part about it. When I would share this with a couple of people that I said, let me get their opinions, they thought it was a great idea. They thought it was an excellent idea. But the
Mm-hmm.
fear of I could not embrace uncertainty, that's one of the places why I think a lot of successful people still think like that. Part of it is influence. Part of it is the lack of positive influence. And then they're trying to do it in their
Mm-hmm.
own strength. Proverbs 3, 5, 6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all of your heart
Mm-hmm.
and lean not
Yep.
on your own understanding." Right there. Lean not on your own logic, your own intellect. Acknowledge him in all your
Mm-hmm.
ways, and then he will make your path straight. So the dependency on us can often lead to uh, fear, anxiety, a belief system in ourself that's higher than God, and that doesn't compute. That dog won't hunt. That doesn't compute. When you have been through betrayal,
Right.
all of those
You know,
different.
that's my favorite scripture.
Mm. So betrayal and all of those different things, you question yourself, you question your judgment, and if it's really far fetched, outside of something that you know or have knowledge about, many people talk themselves out of their dreams because of that.
Yes. Okay. So I thought you were going to say something else. I'm sorry.
No
I was
problem.
waiting for the rest of it. So I was, I interrupted you a minute ago because I was saying Proverbs 3:5 is Mr. Pratt, can you hear me?
I can.
Can
Yes.
you hear me?
Yes.
We're having technical issues here. Here in Panama, everybody, I'm Mr. Pratt. I guess you've gotten used to how it works. And we are still live. And so we're going to continue on with this interview.
Okay.
And I appreciate everybody for sticking in here. So, Mr. Pratt, I was saying that before I got disconnected, that Proverbs 3:5 is one of my, most favorite scriptures.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I wanted to ask, based on what you were saying about how those inner voices, talk to you about the three voices. Do you notice imposter syndrome is more internal, or is it often triggered by external pressures and expectations on um, how you talked yourself out of it? You had the money and you had the credit and you had everything. Do you think that imposter syndrome is triggered by internal pressures or by external pressures and by your own self expectations? That's what I was trying to think
Okay.
of.
I think that they're triggered by both. I think they're triggered by both. I think it depends on the person. I think it depends on the external influence that they may be receiving, because there are many people that are that have been encouraged. You can do this. You can do this, but their own internal fear talks them out of doing it. As I said, when I approached a few people that were successful, that were positive and pouring into me, that when I went to them and talked to them about doing it, they were encouraging. It was my internal fear that talked me out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because now here's the other side of it. When I had the job
Okay.
where I was comfortable, when I said I was going to leap out and do this thing, this entrepreneurial dream of starting this auto detailing business, everyone was trying to talk me out of doing it. But you couldn't talk me out of doing it. I went on and did it anyway. You see what I'm saying? So it can be very different variables. I had one
Yes.
situation where everyone was saying, you need to stay where you're comfortable. I mean, you've got a good career in doing this. You've got a great job, but they couldn't talk me out of doing what I believed that I needed to do. It was outside of my comfort zone. But on the flip side of it, when it came to doing
Right.
something
That
outside of
makes sense.
something that I didn't understand, and people were encouraging me. But I went to entrepreneurs that were doing these things. I just felt like I can't do what they are doing. I don't, I feel like I'm by myself out here on this island. So the fear talked me out of doing it. And I believe that I started listening to the
Yeah.
voices.
Internally. Okay. That answered that.
Right, but hear me about this. I believe I started listening to those old voices that were trying to talk me out of going into business. I had already been in the business and doing well, but I think that the uh,
Mhm.
the voices that may have tried to discourage me from the very beginning, I believe those voices came from wounds of lack of support or lack of belief. And I believe that those voices took over. And then I began to struggle with the fear. And then I talked myself out of it.
Yeah. That makes sense. Well, do you think social media and visibility have amplified imposter syndrome in this generation? that we
Absolutely.
have now? And if so, in what ways?
Absolutely. Um, because
Mhm.
oftentimes on social media, social media can magnify fantasy. And so uh, oftentimes social media
Mhm.
does not show the backstory of what someone went through to get to that success. And so when the person is sitting watching social media and watching the success of other people, they think that it just happened overnight. So when it doesn't happen quick for them, they quit. We see people that are successful in business, successful in music, entertainment, acting, uh, starting a nonprofit, all of these different things. But there's a backstory, usually a backstory of struggle that led to that success. But social media makes it look like it's a microwave thing that just happened overnight. Uh, and it doesn't show the hours, the pain, the struggles, the loss that they had to keep believing in themselves when people were telling them that they couldn't do it. And sometimes you hear, many times, you hear the testimony of people saying, no, you know, I went through this and I went through that and I lost my car, lost my house, all of those different things. But I think that what you mostly see on social media is the magnifying of fantasy and success and not the struggle that it took to get there and the expectation that it's going to happen quick. When it doesn't happen quick, then it causes discouragement.
So we see all the glitz and the glamour from social media, but we don't see what people really go through and how much of that glitz and glamour is really reality too, you know? So
That
let's
is
dig a
correct.
little deeper into where this comes from. What do you believe? Yeah. What do you believe are the root causes of imposter syndrome in high achieving or purpose driven individuals? So, you're what I would consider high achieving and purpose driven. And I that, but often I talk myself out of stuff. Um, and even when I started my nonprofit, I had 15 reasons why I couldn't do it, you know. Um, but it was a calling. And that third voice you mentioned kept telling me I could,
Hmm.
uh, and that he would be with me, God, every step
Hmm.
of the way. But oftentimes, you know, someone may ask me to do something, an idea, and I will convince myself I'm not qualified. So that question again is, what do you believe are the root causes of imposter syndrome in people like yourself achieving a purpose driven, you know, we're purpose driven achieving people.
Okay. So, pretty much the things that I mentioned, those voices,
Tell
where,
me,
where it
yeah.
where it comes from is your circle of influence.
Mhm.
So your circle of influence, or it could be adverse childhood experiences where there could be some challenges that may have happened early in life
Mhm.
where it establishes a lack of belief in yourself or fear. The people around you may not have achieved something that you, this dream that has been planted inside of you. It could be it could be abuse. It could be all of these different things that have happened. That's why I go back to it: wounds, betrayal, uh, hurt, um, never being exposed to, personally being exposed to the thing that you dream about doing. Now, after you get to be successful, I believe that where those people, the high achievers, as you mentioned, even within myself, what I do is I have a team of people that hold me accountable. They hold me accountable, and I meet with them every single week.
Mm-hmm.
Now, watch this. Self-care has a lot to do with canceling imposter syndrome. Self-care. And I stay away from being isolated too much.
Okay. Elaborate.
All right. So isolation can, you often hear people would say these cliches, but there's so much truth in this. Isolation is the devil's playground. So I stay around, I have a team of people.
Yeah, I've heard that.
It's not a large circle, but I have accountability partners that are they're more so in my life for the purpose of seeing me achieve what God has called me to do. They can immediately tell that doubt may have set in, and we literally go through scripture. We have Bible studies, we talk about fear, we talk about the challenges that I may be dealing with in doing something that I may not be, it's outside of my comfort zone. And so and I experienced this in the process of writing this first book that I'm about to publish. You know, I love public speaking. I can do that all day. I absolutely love it. But sitting down, and even though I write really well, I just don't, I just didn't believe that I could author a book. I believed that I could speak one, you know, I could go on a stage and speak, but writing a book is a different process. It's a different kind of discipline. They both require discipline, but it's a different kind of discipline. And the way I believe that God called me to do it was to the people that I was counseling. Many of them gave me permission to share their stories. So it was an emotional process dealing with people, walking them through some very, very dark times in their lives. The counseling part, I was confident because I was walking with God in it, but even walking with God in the writing, still it was something that it wasn't that I didn't have the confidence to do it. I didn't have the discipline to do it like I did public speaking. And so you have to give people permission to hold you accountable to the process and hold you accountable to the outcome. And those people are always speaking optimism, encouraging. When you can't speak it to yourself, that team of people is continuing to speak it because you've been transparent and said, listen, I'm giving you permission. If I start straying, I need you to encourage me. That self-awareness. And some people that are successful don't have that kind of self-awareness.
Okay, so I don't have that kind of self-awareness. I'm gonna tell you why. So when I started this nonprofit, out of nowhere, people started wanting me on their podcast. And I was like, oh, I can't do that. No way can I get on a podcast and talk to people. I can't public speak. No way. So you know what I did, Mr. Prattt? In the beginning, I had different ladies. Would you go to this podcast? Would you speak? I had everybody else doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, no, we want you to do it because you founded the organization. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. But I broke out in cold sweats. I wouldn't remember what I was saying. I would be talking. And after the podcast, I couldn't remember a word that I said. And my circle in the Golden Swan Cadre said, you did absolutely wonderful. You were nervous. No one would ever guess that you were frightened to death. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that had to be God talking.
Exactly.
That had to be God took over. Yep. Because inside, I was having a heart attack on the inside. You know. So yeah, my circle told me, you're good. This is your calling. And I'm like, it's not my calling. Mm-hmm. Here I am now on my second podcast. In the beginning, I was like, no way can I do that.
Yes.
And here I am with 2 podcasts. So,
Yes.
yeah, that just goes to show you how God steps in. And so, what I think I understood you to say, and I'm going to reiterate it for everybody, is that our past experiences like rejection, failure, or even our childhood environments can shape how we view our self-worth and our calling. Pretty much, is that what you said in that last statement?
Yeah, that was part of it. But the other part of it is, watch this, our comfort zones oftentimes are the foundation of our dysfunction. If it's something that is outside, and see, God is always evolving us. He's always moving us towards evolution, the next level. And the next level is scary if you don't have faith. The next level is still scary if you have faith.
Mhm.
There's a key word that I did not that I wanted to say in the area of overcoming imposter syndrome, and that is surrender. You have to surrender yourself. You have to surrender your fear,
Mhm.
your logic, your intellect, all of those things to Christ, and let him guide you in the way. Because again, in scripture, it says that his thoughts are not our thoughts and his ways are higher than our ways. And so with that, there's a level of surrender, which goes back to that thing about a dependency seed. We have to depend on him, even in the things that we have been gifted in. And when we check ourselves in that way,
Mhm.
then there is the chipping away of that imposter syndrome.
Makes sense. So, how much of imposter syndrome do you think is tied to us comparing ourselves to other people, or to comparison? Let's just put it that way.
That you just that is a huge part of it. We compare the comparison is such um, a large part of the foundation of the imposter syndrome. Comparing, I can't do what they did, or I've never taught that, or I don't have the money to do that, or nobody's going to believe that I can do this. And you're comparing yourself, which is again one of the challenges of social media. Social media is not all bad. It just depends on how you process it and work with it. But many people get when they get into it, it ends up
Yeah.
creating a negative self-image. And so yeah, the comparison is really, really detrimental to many people.
Yeah. So, Mr. Pratt, why do you think people feel like frauds, even when they fully are qualified or even overqualified for what they're doing?
Because they are dependent on themselves.
Frauds, like meaning they're not.
Their dependency is on themselves. Like even after they accomplish it,
Okay.
there's no way in the world I could have done that. That was luck. Their belief system is not in something or someone higher than themselves. And oftentimes there's not again, I can't stress more how important a circle of influence and accountability that is constantly pouring into you, but it has to be biblical, wise biblical counsel, wise biblical accountability that keeps that fraudulent thought out of your head, when you're thinking that you did it, when you're thinking that it was luck that did it, it was not Christ, then you don't believe. And again, this is not about belief, so much belief in yourself, it's belief in the one that created you to do what you're doing. That's why I said surrender is so incredibly important. Because when you surrender to Christ, you're saying there's no way in the world I could
So
have
we
done this
really need
without
to start
Christ.
giving.
See, surrender to Christ says,
Yes.
I know it was God that did this.
That's saying a different. Yeah.
Fraud says there's no
Yeah,
way
that's
I
putting a
couldn't have
stamp
done
on
it.
it.
So it had to be
So
luck that did it. You hear the difference?
yes, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So how can you tell? Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Um, you're giving, like if I say, oh, that was just pure luck versus that was God, then I'm surrendering and acknowledging where that came from and how it
Exactly.
happened, right?
Going back to the scripture of Proverbs 3:5-6.
Yeah,
Acknowledge him
yes,
in all your ways. When something
yeah.
happens, something miraculous happens, something happens outside of your intellect, then you know that it was done by God. You were the vessel. But when you're focusing, when you're believing only in yourself,
Yeah.
that's where the doubt comes in.
So check this out. How can someone tell the difference between walking in their purpose and performing for validation?
I think that it
You
goes right.
see
Go ahead. Go. I'm sorry.
a lot of that and you wonder sometimes.
I
No, I
think,
finished. I'm sorry.
okay. I think that the way you can tell the difference is listening to who they consider as their source. See if the performance, in Philippians
Mhm.
2:3 says, do nothing out of self ambition. It's not that you shouldn't be ambitious, but it's about listening to what's the person's source. Where does their strength come from? Where does their strength come from? Do you believe that you're manufacturing this strength yourself? When you hear in scripture when it says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, what's your source? That's where you can tell the difference.
Mhm. That's so. Do you think when you can tell imposter syndrome can come back from their assignment? Like I think we shrink back.
You faded out for a second. I couldn't hear what your question was or what your
Mr.
statement.
Pratt, did you hear the question?
I did not. No.
Oh, okay. I was wondering. That's all right. Um, yeah, that's okay. Listen, I this platform is a lot more relaxed than the other. We don't have to do the commercial breaks. I watch other people's platforms and I see people have the same problems with theirs as we're having tonight.
Mhm.
But the fact that we're persevering and going on through with it matters more than the glitches. So my question was, if you think imposter syndrome can cause people to shrink back from their assignment, and I think I know the answer. Ask that question.
Do I think that imposter syndrome can cause people to shrink back?
Did you get it, Mr. Pratt?
I think I got part of it. I'm not sure that I got all of it.
Do you want to, you want me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
Okay. Do you think imposter syndrome can cause people to shrink back from their God-given assignment?
Absolutely. Many people do it. You know how you hear people say that many dreams are in the cemetery. They got buried with the person. Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe that there are more people.
Yeah, I've heard that.
There are more
Hmm.
people that go to their grave that never uh, pers- persevered or pursued, even started their dreams because of imposter syndrome. Absolutely. It's a huge epidemic, I believe.
That's really sad, Mr. Pratt.
Yes.
But that's really sad to think that people live all these years on and never even begin the word that you just said, they don't ever begin
Never
their
begin.
dreams. That's
Mhm.
really sad.
Yes.
Oh wow. Uh, what are some what are some signs that someone is self-sabotaging because they don't feel worthy of their purpose? Like they just quit and give up? Like you said, they just do they never you do you think people can go through life and never even know what their purpose is?
Yes. Yes. It goes back to what I was saying about influence or the lack thereof,
Okay.
the lack of influence, um,
Mm-hmm.
not believing in themselves. Um, Oftentimes in my process when I counsel people, there's 7 things that I take them through in my counseling process. That is to understand what personal peace looks like to them, what professional peace looks like to them, what relationship peace looks like to them, which leads me to 4 other things. Who specifically who you are, specifically who you are not, specifically what your foundational principles are, and specifically what your purpose is in life. When we go through this personal assessment that I created, it helps people land in their minds and in their spirits, their dreams. Are they doing anything? Is there a plan to fulfill them? And what is talking them out of it or what's leading them towards it? It's a very in-depth process that God gave me, and I never could have created that on my own. Again, it was surrender.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So with that, I help people
So, Mr.
discover what
Pratt,
their purpose
I
is.
as okay, go ahead and finish telling us how you do that.
So it's with the personal assessment that I created. And here's the other part of it. The second part of it, if you're in a relationship with someone, I find out the things, those 7 things in that person too, to make sure that when you get in a relationship with someone, that they are supportive of those 7 things. Because to be in a healthy relationship, you need to have personal peace, professional peace, relationship peace, and to really understand specifically who you are, who your partner is, who you are not, and who your partner is not.
Mm-hmm.
What the foundational principles are of both of you, and
Mm-hmm.
understanding the purpose for both of you so that you can support each other, encourage each other, hold each other accountable so that imposter syndrome does not set in.
Yeah, because I could see like somebody possibly having had a failed marriage before, um, taking that imposter syndrome over to the next and self-sabotaging themselves in that relationship for whatever reason that they feel like is the reason the other marriage didn't work. So they would need to go through this, it, what you're talking about now, so they don't carry that forward, right? That's just one
That is
example.
correct. That is correct.
And I'm gonna just say, I fit that bill. I've been divorced a while, and I got to the point where I'm like, it is not even worth it. It didn't work then. It probably won't work again. That's imposter syndrome. I already
Yes.
know that, and I did that. I did that for a long time. I didn't want to. I didn't want to. I didn't want to get hurt again. So I just figured for whatever reason it didn't work then, it probably won't work again. And I stayed single. But I regret that. There's a lot of years in there I wished I could get back, but who knows? It may happen in the future. You never know. Having you as one of my subject matter experts, I've gotten free therapy, free counseling, and along with the public, along with everybody else that is listening to our show, and
Uh-huh.
we are number one on one of the platforms. So the information that you share is information that people want to hear, and it helps me. So let's talk about moving forward. um, I had a ton of questions, but as usual, I never have enough time to go through them. But I'm going to kind of wrap it up. It's almost an hour. What are some practical ways people can push past imposter syndrome in real time? So let's kind of like help us. We know what it is, and we know what causes it, and what can we do to push past imposter syndrome in real time?
Okay. The first thing I believe to get past it is surrender yourself to a relationship with Jesus Christ. You have to stop being so self-reliant. You need to, a relationship with Jesus Christ, put your reliance on him. And then diving into the word of God, you begin to believe what he says about you instead of what you say about you and what other people say about you. That's the foundation of becoming uh, dependent on Christ and not
Amen.
dependent on yourself. That's the first thing. The second thing would be to surround yourself with a positive circle of influence. And those people need to be biblically sound as well. The third thing is to address your fears and everything in counseling. We have this stigma of trying to figure things out. We spend money for houses and cars and trips and things like that, but we don't invest in uh, in in therapy. And I think that it's the wisest investment that a person can make,
Oh, hell. Mhm.
because just like you just said, well, it happened before. That's your wounded voice saying, well, I can never have a healthy relationship again, because you're listening to that wounded voice. Now,
Mhm.
if you, and when you've been hurt before, I understand that.
Mhm.
And especially the severity of what may, if it's traumatic and that kind of thing. But then on the other side of that, there's an emptiness when you want to be loved
Mhm.
and you want to love someone, but you're talking yourself out of it because of something traumatic that happened in the past. And so,
Yeah.
walking through a process as the one that I have, that God has given me, not only do I take the person that's been wounded, and oftentimes it's two wounded people coming together, uh, and I help people unpack that baggage with me and then teach them how to unpack each other's baggage through loving and serving each other. But that's a surrender again to Christ, and then surrendering to a person that has been skilled
Mm-hmm.
and and has dedicated their lives, because again, my personal mission in life is to help people live a next level life. And that can be in relationships, it can be in business, it can be in just their relationship with themselves, a relationship with Christ. But trying to do it in your own strength, you won't succeed, because you're disconnected from the source that will help
I
you
know. And I
do it.
said, if I ever get married, yep. And I think that through several years of process, I have gotten to where I have surrendered my life to Christ. Then I started thinking, well, maybe I would like to be in a relationship. When you ever do, we're going to come to you, me and whoever. We're going to go to Mr. Prattt for counseling prior to it.
But
So, Mr.
here,
Prattt, do you
here
think confidence comes before action or after it? Um,
that's a very
okay.
good question. That's a very good question. One of the one of the one of the principles that I counsel, you have to act your way into new feelings instead of trying to feel your way into new actions. Feeling your way into new actions does not work. It does not work. I can tell you exactly where the scripture is. It's in Matthew 7:24 through 27. It talks about those who hear my commands and put them into practice is like a wise man who built their house on the foundation of a rock. The wind came, the storms came. The
Mhm.
just paraphrasing, the wind blew, the storms came, uh, but the house stood because it was on a foundation of a rock. Before you meet somebody, let me finish the rest of it. It says, "But those who hear my commands and don't put them into practice is like a person who built their house on sand. The rain came, the storms came, the wind blew, and the house had a severe crash. In other words, because the house was not built on a foundation of a rock. In other words, when I counsel people from,
Mhm.
first of all, to get listen to this, it is very hard to have a healthy relationship with someone else when you're having a toxic relationship with yourself. When I counsel people that have come out of traumatic situations,
I know that's right.
narcissistic relationships, unhealthy relationships, you have to start in a process with someone to get you together first before you even meet the other person. You don't come with that person and then you haven't really worked through the
Mhm.
confidence of even getting into a relationship. The confidence comes first from acting your way into new feelings. That is surrendering yourself to personal counsel first, because it'll help you choose a better partner. Not picking the partner and you haven't gone through personal counsel first. Before I met my wife, I went through counseling, and most men, it is very difficult to get them to do it. It was the biggest and the best and the best decision that I could ever make, because watch this. If you don't invest on the front end, you're going to end up paying on the back end emotionally and with lawyers.
Mhm. With lawyers is right.
Yeah,
So you got spend the money on the front end so
you
you
have
don't
to
have to pay it
spend the
on the
money
back
on the
end.
front
But
end.
I have to mhm. I have to 100% agree with you on the counseling before and sometimes even during. I went through marriage counseling, and my ex husband is deceased, but he was not honest. He was not forthright. He held back stuff. He was not transparent, and it was a waste of time and money. Honestly, he was saying things that he didn't really feel, but that he thought he needed to say to get me to marry him. That marriage was very toxic, very traumatic, and traumatizing, really. I spent 10 years, and in my book, I'm going to tell everything that has happened. And I know I probably shared some of it with you, but I have spent 10 years just focusing on myself, getting healed, getting my head right, my heart right, my business right, my finances right, my family right, all of that, just taking care of me and surrendering. I started this nonprofit that I thought I couldn't do and kind of was resistant against the beginning. And things started shifting when I started thinking, well, maybe I do think I can be in a healthy relationship, because I was with a narcissist and they make you think everything is your fault. And you start believing that stuff,
Yes.
if you're in it long enough. People that haven't been in that situation won't understand what I'm saying, because I've had people say things like, there's no way I would ever let a man abuse me. And that just gets me every time I hear somebody say it. You have to walk a mile in my shoes, and not just mine, hundreds and thousands of other women, to
Absolutely.
understand
And
how they
men,
get
they're,
there,
they're,
because some
they're
of us are
also
magnets for narcissists.
absolutely, and men have been abused
I
as well.
agree.
So,
And
so
when you, yeah.
let me say this.
So when people make that statement, it just rubs me the wrong way.
Let me say this. Anyone, and I
Go
mean
ahead.
anyone that has been in a relationship with a narcissist needs personal counseling. Trying to figure it out by yourself.
Hmm.
Remember those 7 things that I said, that my process, it's very specific. Even in what the Bible teaches, you need someone that is skilled specifically in using the Bible to help you navigate to heal. Podcasts and all those things are great,
Hmm.
great things. But a podcast, you're listening to advice, and just like people are listening to what I'm saying, right? But there's something different when you invest in a personal process
Hmm.
that deals with your specific wounds, that deals with your specific hurts. That is very different than here, because there's no back and forth conversation. You're just listening to the advice of me or anyone else. But a specific process that walks you through those individual pains is very different. It is a laser focused process on the specifics of that specific person. Do you know, when I do, for instance, when I marry a couple, the vows are very different. The vows are based on the specifics that I took them through in their premarital counseling. So one set of vows, I get to
Hmm.
the ones that are, in the traditional wedding, but the vows, I extend them through the personal things that I know that they had challenges with. And when those vows are specific and tailored to the things that I know about that couple, it becomes very personal about how they come together, because my my purpose in doing it that way is to put a dent in the divorce rate. And the only way that I believe that that can have
Yes.
an effect on people,
You-
and the impact, is to deal with both people specifically with their wounds, specifically with their struggles, and specifically how to help both people understand, acknowledge, and respect the wounds of each person and keeping your fingers off of the triggers. And you can't do that just from I don't think people can do that effectively. And the statistics with the divorce rate being so high, that people really learn how to be married or learn how to have a healthy relationship if you don't have a skilled person in the middle helping you navigate that. You wouldn't start a business without talking to someone that showed you how to start a business. You wouldn't do that without a lawyer that showed you how to navigate the paperwork and all of that kind of stuff like that. But people enter into emotional relationships based on their feelings, which is why in my book I talk about the importance of moving couples from compatibility to sustainability. And that means understanding each other specifically. It's a big difference
Right.
than just falling in love emotionally. It's much bigger than that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, I agree that counseling and therapy is important. I've been doing it for a long time, and I've even encouraged my daughters that are grown to do it as well. And I'll tell you, with myself, I did some crying. I got emotional. Like you say, it's laser focused. Sometimes it's putting a mirror in front of you too, and exposing things that you've kept buried deep inside that was causing a lot of problems. And it can go back to childhood. It can go back to um, early teenage years and carry over. So it's very, very important to do. You have my vote on that. And I probably always will get some sort of counseling. Every now and then I still do it because I feel like I need it. I need a little tune up, so I go do it.
Mm-hmm.
But let's
It's
see.
good.
I want to ask you two more things before we wrap it up. Yeah, I encourage everybody to do it. So I have a couple more questions. I've had to cut out some questions because I always have a lot for you. But can affirmations or speaking life over yourself actually shift your mindset?
Yes, I believe that is part of the process. You do, but you have to get those affirmations. Again, I go back to the same thing. The affirmations need to come from Christ. You need to believe what Christ says about you. Because if it's just you giving yourself affirmations and those affirmations are not rooted in what Jesus Christ says about you, you're giving yourself a motivational speech instead of a transformational message to yourself. There's the difference.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of people are into affirmations nowadays. That's why I asked that question. And I often wonder, you know, what other people are thinking when they just speak affirmations. Do they think that's going to make it happen? Or do they have to actually, feel that deep in their soul? And like you say, is it from Christ that resets the mindset? I think you're right. So, in wrapping up here, what would you say to someone who is on the verge of giving up because they feel like they're not enough?
Um, what I would say to them is seek wise counsel, wise biblical counsel. Seek wise biblical counsel with someone that will walk with them through first getting to the root of that mindset and hearing and seeing and believing. I'm literally doing this with several men, several women, and several couples. Because watch this, the imposter syndrome. If you don't walk with wise biblical counsel, you can be, and I was, again, this goes back to this business thing that I told you about those daycare centers. You can be in the right place at the right time in the wrong mindset, and you'll sabotage it. So a person that is in that place needs to be with wise biblical counsel that can help them first get to the root of the thinking, which can eliminate the root of the bad behavior or the wrong behavior, and get into the right mindset of surrender. And then that will help them stay focused and stay on task with the purpose that God called them to.
And that's good stuff right there. Wow. This conversation right here, if there's one thing I want you to take from today, is that you can feel unqualified and still be chosen. You can feel uncertain and still be called. You feel like, excuse me, I lost my place. You can feel like an imposter, because that's what we're talking about, and still be walking in your purpose. Because purpose was never about perfection. It was about obedience, is what Mr. Prattt has just told us right here.
Yes.
And maybe, just maybe, that voice telling you you're not enough is actually confirmation that you're stepping into something bigger than yourself. So don't shrink, don't step back, don't disqualify yourself from what God has already approved. Mr. Prattt told us that. You are not an imposter. You are in a process. Thank you all for being here today, for listening and growing with me, with Mr. Prattt. I always learn something from him. I could have him here every week like I used to, but he's a busy man, so I had to give him a break once a month. But he's here, and I'm so happy that he is. And I just want to say to you all, I want to thank you for being here at home with Goldnbronze and Mr. Prattt. I'll meet you right back here the next time. We will be here. Mr. Prattt and I will be here on every second Thursday, is, I believe, the date that we have picked, with more juicy information, more topics of interest that are mine, because this show is about at home with Goldnbronze, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what I want to know about, laughter, fun, my friends. He's my friend. So I meet here with my friends every so often just to have a good time. And so I'm glad that you all joined me, Mr. Prattt. I'm so glad that you joined me. I wished I had had time to ask you other questions, but I'm sure I'll get it in. So I want to thank you, sir, for being here, and hold tight just for a minute, everybody. Thank you again. Hold on, everyone. Well, my outro's not playing, so hold on. Trying to give y'all some music to go out on. So, Mr. Prattt, can you sing?
I don't want to run your audience away. I can carry a little note, but I don't.
Hold on. All right, well, we're just going to have to go out without music. I can't get it to work. Again, everyone, thank you for joining us with At Home with Goldnbronze, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Mr. Prattt. Have a good evening, everybody. Have a good evening, Mr. Prattt. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.